Truck drivers, what's a creepy story you've got from the middle of nowhere? My dad drove a truck between Edinburgh and London and tells this story often. He was driving down the motorway and looked to his right, saw a woman with a mistrunchable bun, as he describes it, staring at him with a terrified expression from a car next to him. Before he really knows how to react, the car pulls off at the next exit and my dad, although shaken, carries on. About half an hour later, a different car with a different driver pulls alongside my dad with the same woman in the passenger seat with the same expression on her face. My dad thinks, fuck this, and plans to pull into the next services to report, as even if it's nothing, misunderstanding, better to be safe than sorry, right? Anyway, the car disappears before he can get any details, plates, etc., and he thinks there is no point calling the police with no details, so he carries on driving. Literally about 4 hours later, almost in London, yet another car pulls alongside him with the same woman, same mistrunchable hair, same terrified expression, except this time she appears to be screaming at my dad through the window, so my dad pulls over into a lay-by and calls the police. Apparently, they have received 3 other calls about the same woman, charged car, in the same area in the last few minutes. It is unfortunately anticlimactic, as he never heard anything more about it, but he didn't see her again, and although he kept an eye on the news, didn't see anything about it. Hopefully, it's just a giant coincidence. Who knows? Around 2006-ish, I was driving flatbed, picked up a load of construction material, drywall, roofing, don't remember, but it was pre-packaged in boxes, and I remember having to use strap protectors on the load. In rural Tennessee, memory is foggy now, but I want to say it was between Memphis and Nashville, but closer to the intersection of the Mississippi, Alabama, Tennessee state lines. Tarp required, so I strapped everything down, tarped the load, and left the shipper. About 5 miles down the road, in the middle of nowhere woods on a 2-lane road, I noticed my tarp flapping in the wind. Found a wide shoulder and pulled over to fix it. I realized that I just flat did a shitty job tarping this load and decide to redo it on the side of the road. Undo all the bungee straps, drag the tarps off, roll them back up, climb up on the load, and start unrolling the tarps again, and I see a guy walking down the same side of the road I'm on, coming towards my truck. I don't think anything about it other than to keep an eye on him because I'm in the middle of nowhere and continue what I'm doing. About the time I have tarps set in place and I'm climbing down to start hooking the bungee straps back on, this dude is getting close enough that I'm now paying more attention to him than I am to tarping my load. I grab my winch bar and set it on the trailer where I'm working just in case. 8-pound solid metal bar about 4 feet long, tapered to a blunt point on one and hollow on the other, used for tightening straps and chains, etc. The guy gets to me, and the first thing I notice is his hair. It's like a mullet, but it's patchy as fuck. Like he tried to cut his own hair and had a seizure in the process and said, fuck it, good enough to party. The next thing I notice were his eyes, which I can only describe as off. Like they were clear, I didn't think he was drunk or high or anything, but it also gave me the distinct impression that the elevator didn't go all the way up. Clothes were dirty and not well maintained, with dirty white tennis shoes, because I remember he didn't have laces on one shoe, and the tongue was noticeably out of place. He stops by me, waits until I acknowledge him, and just says, "I've got a long walk." I'm like, "Yeah, man, you do, we're in the middle of nowhere," making it clear there's no ride to be had here. He nods, starts walking by me, continuing on his way, stops at about the driver door on my truck and turns around, comes back to me and repeats himself. "I've got a long walk." At this point, I explain that I can't give him a ride, insurance and all that. Apologize for not being able to help him out, and he seems to accept this, turns around and leaves. I wait for him to get a little ways away from my truck and start working on finishing the tarp job. I still keep an eye on him, and he's moving away from me. As I'm putting on the last of the bungee straps, I look over to check where he's at, and he's turned around heading back towards me, now about 100 yards in front of my truck and coming back my way. It looks like he's talking on a cell phone, has his hand up to his face and I can barely make out his mouth moving, his other hand waving like he's having a conversation with someone. I finish with the straps, grab my winch bar, and am climbing into my truck as he's about 10 yards away now. Soon as I'm in the cab, I lock the doors and set the winch bar on the passenger seat just in case. I look at the guy and realize he's not talking on a phone. He's talking to his fucking hand, and now I'm nervous because he doesn't look like he's having a nice, pleasant chat. It looks more like an angry conversation. Crank the truck up, put it in gear, and just pull out. Didn't look for traffic or anything. As I pass him, he's just looking at me, still holding his hand to his face with this dead-ass look on his face, just staring at me. Gave me the creeps. About the time I hit 5th or 6th gear, I look in the mirror, and there's no one there. I was driving through eastern Washington on some state roads. There were no rest stops or cities, but I had done the route enough to know there were these massive dirt areas every about 40 miles where you could park safely away from the road. I decided to call it a night and closed my blinds and laid down to watch something on my phone. After roughly an hour, I hear someone try to open the driver's side door. I haven't heard any vehicles on the road the whole time I'm parked, but I get up to peek out the curtains. As I'm looking out into the blackness of the driver's side window, I hear them try the passenger side door. I peek down from the top of the curtain but can't see anything, so I start the truck and kick on the lights. I'm fairly freaked out at this point, so I'm still not opening the curtains but peeking through gaps. Nothing. Nobody is standing near either of my doors or parked within sight line. I take a deep breath and close the sleeper curtains too, because for some reason, that's going to make things better, right? After laying back down and convincing myself that something blew against the truck and it only sounded like the doors, it was fairly windy outside and a lot of flat ground, I hear what sounds like someone trying to pry open the vents on the sleeper. The door handles start clicking again and the truck starts shifting like someone is climbing on it. I hit the little alarm button in the sleeper, hoping to spook them off, but it does nothing but add to the noise of door handles, fingers tapping on windows and chassis, and the hiss of air coming out of the suspension. Then suddenly it stops. A few moments where I can only hear myself breathing and my heart pounding before I hear another truck approach and then drive by. I spent the next few hours waiting for whatever it was to come back, but it never did. In the morning, I couldn't find any footprints or damage to my truck, but on every window were tiny human-looking handprints, like a toddler had licked their hand and stuck it to my window over and over. I'm also not a truck driver, but I do drive 5 hours one way to work. My shift gets out at 11:30 p.m., so if I've got a second wind, I can usually make it the whole way home. Sometimes, I have to stop to nap. So, I recall getting tired shortly before Binghamton, which from work to Binghamton proper is about 1.5 hours. This exit with a gas station I stop at frequently is about 15 minutes before this. Anyway, I stop, gas up, buy my snacks and smokes, and put up a sign in my window saying, "I'm okay, I just have 4 more hours of driving to do, please don't knock." I've had that happen countless times, and if I'm really out, people think I'm dead and call the cops. Then I have to convince the cops that I just worked 32 hours with about 4 hours of sleep, not nodding out on heroin or whatever. God bless the people for thinking they're helping, and I don't want them to stop, hence the note LOL. And I push the seat back to nap. I have an alarm set for 20 minutes. This is about 1 a.m. Next thing I know, it's 6:30 a.m., and I'm on some back road with houses, but also fields, and I'm driving super slowly. I have no idea where I am and how I came to be here. I don't have a lot of service bars, but I plug in my mom's address and hope directions pop up. It does, and it takes me to a highway entrance in Harpersville, New York. Okay, in about 20 minutes, I'm back on track. I don't recall how long before this story happened, but I had gotten into an accident falling asleep at the wheel. Totaled my car, got a nice eyebrow scar and nosebleed, back more fucked up than it had been, but otherwise okay. Got fucked by my insurance too. But then, this happens, and it scared the fuck out of me. Assuming I woke up to my alarm, it would have been like 1:30 a.m., and I came to about 6:30 a.m. What the hell was I doing for 5 hours? How did I not hit anything? Checked out the car, it was fine. How was I driving the speed limit? Because I imagine any faster or slower would have gotten the cops on me. Just how? Or was I asleep the whole time, but still slept, drove about 25 minutes until I really woke up? The terror allowed me to complete the drive. My uncle is a truck driver in Guatemala, small town with just a single road that passes through. I used to love sitting outside at night on the hammock, listening to his chilling stories. I'll start with the scariest ones. 1. Can you see them? My uncle said he hired a guy from town to help him drive late shifts at night with him on the road. Story was, the guy had somehow managed to burn a house down as a kid and has since claimed to see the dead. Would occasionally swerve on the roads at nothing, or worse, my uncle said he would be sitting around when the guy would say, "I see a little girl on the swing." My aunt confirmed it, said he would say things like that often. Apparently he learned to live with it, or some scary third world shit. 2. The cave. My uncle said one night he was sleeping above the trailer bed when suddenly, in the distance, he could see a small light approaching. As it got closer, he had a chilling realization. He described seeing a really, really old, wrinkly woman who held a candle draped in dark gowns. He said her nails were so long they curled. She walked into a cave opening and disappeared. My uncle said he noped out there real fast. 3. The horse. My uncle often likes to talk about spirits. He said one night while sleeping, a giant rabid horse tried to climb onto his truck. It would rocket back and forth, and the truck weighs an ungodly amount. He said when the rocking stopped, he jumped in and left. This is just the stories that I have from my uncle. I have also experienced paranormal stuff, and so has my family. Banging on the back windows with no one there, lights flashing at 3 a.m., and countless others. Guatemala is no joke, LOL. Not a trucker, but a spooky driving experience nonetheless. This happened some 15 years ago as I was driving back up north from Newbury in the UK. Now I don't do anywhere near as much driving as you Americans, but for late night trips, I always operate a buddy system just in case. My friend had taken his rest and woke IP about 45 minutes before time to set off. I checked the weather forecast. Heavy fog due across the M1 at around 2 a.m., just as I would be hitting that part of the route. Damn. I ask my buddy if we can set off half an hour earlier to skip it. He agrees and we set off. We're doing good time thanks to the lack of traffic, but I can see a fog line appearing. It gets thick, fast. I take a look at the clock, 1:30 a.m. Damn weather forecasters got it wrong again, I think to myself. I ask my buddy to stay alert in case I miss something as I'll be concentrating dead ahead. I have to slow to about 35 to 40 miles per hour, from 70, because visibility is basically nil, but stopping the car would be suicide if there's anything behind me. Based on my position, I know there's a service station in about 15 miles, so I'll turn off there and wait it out. The fog starts getting really thick to the point where I'm thinking maybe it's actually safer to stop. I can't see the road or the cat's eyes at this point. I pull to the left slowly and wait for the telltale feel of the hard shoulders rumble strip. It didn't come, nor has the car hit a ditch. At this point, I'm a bit freaked out as I have no orientation and I can't see the road. I'm down to about 15 miles per hour now as my buddy says, "Hey, there's a light in front of us." It's a green light, which is odd for the motorway, but maybe I can see what's going on from there. I pick up a little speed and head towards the green light. As I'm driving forward, the fog begins to lift and I realize where we are. At the intersection of Beverly Road and the A63. The green light was a traffic light. I pull the car over and we both say to each other, "What the fuck?" This is approximately 150 miles from where the fog started, a good 2.5 hours drive away. I look at my watch, 1:50 a.m. I take a look at the radio clock in the car, 4 a.m. I get my phone out, My buddy gets his phone out. Both say 1:50 a.m. As I look in the rear view, there's not a trace of fog behind me. Both of us are quite freaked out at this point, so we decided to find out which clock is right. I drive to the station, 4:07 a.m. To this day, I have no explanation, and neither of us can account for the missing 2.5 hours. Not how I managed to do multiple lane changes and junctions to get from the M1 to the M62 and then the A63. So I am an over-the-road truck driver in America. I generally stay in the Midwest as I enjoy the open road and less traveled areas. I tend to drive at night because the roads are a lot more empty and there tends to be less traffic construction going on around that time. Around this particular night, I was in Kansas making my way to Wyoming. I drive for hours at a time non-stop, so before my drive, I stack up on food and drinks. I've accustomed my bladder to hold going to the bathroom after years of truck driving until I can't hold it anymore. Now in Nebraska, I get the urge to pee, so I start finding a part of the road that I'm able to pull over safely without damaging my tires. But this is the backwoods of the country, so finding this would be a little hard, but not impossible. When I finally feel that I have found a perfect enough location, I pull over. Since I'm in the middle of nowhere, I have nowhere to piss besides an empty gallon that contained water because there's no way I'm stepping outside in the dead of night. As I'm doing my business, I hear a tap. I do want to make it known that I travel in my truck alone. I don't have a partner on the truck nor a pet of any kind. The truck radio is off, the windows are up, and all you can hear from my perspective is the hum of the truck running. I begin to look for the sound, which at first I thought was my mini fridge, because when it gets unplugged, the melted water from the freezer will leak out and start to make a patter noise on the floor. I checked, and it wasn't that, and in realizing this, I noticed the tap sounded more like a small rock hitting the side of the truck, the driver's side in particular. Within my truck, I start to look outside of the driver window, but don't find anything in particular, so I start to look out of all the windows. I don't see anything anywhere, so I start to think it could be the truck itself. I get back in the driver's seat to get out of the truck to look under the hood. As I'm about to step out, another small rock hits my door, and I look out into the side of the road where in the field stand these tall corn stalks. Keep in mind, corn stalks are tall as fuck. I mean, I'm standing on the top step of my truck and I can see right above them, and in looking out into the darkness, I see the top of someone's head, just the top. Not even a forehead, just their hair, which was black. The average height of a cornstalk is 8 feet, so I don't know about you, but whoever that was had an advantage. I get back in the truck and lock the doors, put the window down a tad bit and yell, "Hey, you need help?" No answer. "Hey man, you good?" No answer, so I say fuck it and put the truck in gear and haul ass. I don't even look back, just try to get away from them and the area as fast as the truck will go after being at a standstill on the side of the road. I drive for hours until I reach Wyoming and pull over at a truck stop to get some sleep. Before heading to sleep, I go inside the truck stop to get some food, and as I'm coming back to my truck, I see marks on the back of the passenger side of the truck as if someone had keyed my truck. I start angrily looking around to see who it could have been, but can't really come to a conclusion since most of the other drivers weren't in their front seat. Then, I start looking around my entire cab and notice the marks are also on the back of the cab near the platform where the cab and trailer connect. I start remembering about the person I saw in the field and thought it was them, but I don't remember feeling anyone hop on back there, so I was left puzzled. Nothing else happened for the rest of the day, thankfully, so I'm not sure who that person was or what they wanted or what their intentions even were, and I'm glad I never ended up finding out.